will be emailed out afterwards, and we'll drop a link to the slides as well. So if you miss anything from the slides, you'll be able to catch back up again. So if my lovely clicker can migrate us through. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure to meet, my name is Kate Kirwin, founder and CEO of She Codes Australia. So I wanted to start off by saying hello and kaya. Kaya is the Noongar word for hello. So saying hello to you from Whadjuk Noongar country here in Western Australia. Before we get started, I would like to pay respects to Indigenous elders, past, present, and emerging. We're so lucky, honestly, we're so lucky to live in this amazing country and on this amazing soil. So like I said, I'm joining you from Whadjuk Noongar land in Boorloo in Perth. But I recognise that we've got people from all over the place joining us on this call tonight that are on various different soils all over the country. So I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to both our Whadjuk Noongar elders on the land that I'm in, but also extend that to the elders of land of where you are all joining me from today as well. So tonight we're going to be chatting about how to be a conference speaker. And I'm so excited because we've got 4 amazing women who are going to be leading the discussion. So I'm going to be working here in the background. You're not going to see much of me tonight. Tonight is about these 4 incredible women. But what's really exciting is that we'll be doing a bunch of these webinars over the next 6 to 12 months. And we have one next week. So it'll be a little bit different format next week. Next week, we have one of our mentors doing a presentation of what is the internet. So talking a little bit about the history of the internet, how it started, what some of the words mean, and a little bit of an overview of how you work on the internet. So the fundamental building blocks of web pages, HTML and CSS, and giving a little bit of history and background of that. So that's going to be a 1-hour webinar on Thursday evening. Feel free to join us, really beginner level, but you might learn a little bit of history that you don't already know. So feel free to sign up for that one. But for tonight, putting the cart before the horse, I guess, talking about next week's webinar before we've even finished this week's webinar, I'm very excited to introduce you your hosts for today. You can even see from these photos that we're in for a bit of a treat because we've got fun hair colors. We have people with microphones on stage. We have these amazing smiles. We've got incredible women with us today. So I'd like to introduce, we have Jo Minney, who is the founder, director of a web agency here in Perth called House Digital, and has spoken in a whole heap of conferences, and we'll tell you all about it. We have the wonderful Michelle Sandford, who is at Microsoft. And if you're not connected with her on LinkedIn, I'm surprised because she's honestly connected with just about everyone. It's the wonderful Michelle. We also have Nina Karisik, who I can see is in purple today and is in purple in her photo. So bonus points for Nina. Nina is one of our amazing She Codes Plus alumni from the first program. And has gone on to be a junior developer and has spoken at lots and lots of different events and is the queen of a pep talk. And last but definitely not least is Amy Kapernick, who gets bonus points for reconfiguring her lighting for this talk tonight. We were chatting about that off screen before this webinar officially started. Amy has been really involved in the ecosystem for a long time and is also a web developer with her business and is smashing it on stage. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to our wonderful presenters, and they're going to be running through a little bit of the content. So the flow for this is that we've got about half an hour of nitty gritty to get through. And if you've got questions that pop up during the call, feel free to drop them in the chat. so we can get to them at the end. And then we'll have about a 45-minute Q&A at the end of the session today, for the 4 presenters to share some of their stories about conference speaking, but also to answer any of your questions and get you a little bit unstuck, to get you started. So should be an action-packed next hour and 20 minutes. But we really want to make this as interactive and useful as possible. So make sure you're asking the questions that you want answered, and remember that the only silly questions are the ones that you don't ask. So over to our first speaker. I believe we have Nina.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. So thank you so much for everyone for joining. This is such a pleasure. Really, really excited. So yeah, where do you start? Well, the way I start when it comes to conferences and giving talks is thinking about where I want to travel, like, or seeing people. And I just get so excited and then I manifest it. No, no. Well, basically, to start, I would definitely recommend just like begin with local meetups, and beginning with going to different places and seeing other people do it really. That's like one thing that I think is really, really important. And then think about what you really know, and something like, I bet that there's always something that people ask you, and how to show them something, or you really want to show them something, and then you just like, oh, you really, really want to share or even overshare a lot. And I think just like pinpointing that and then zoning in on it, and then thinking, where could I find a community that I could that could possibly be even forced to listen to me for the next 30 or even 15, even 10 minutes, but me babbling about my favorite topic in the whole wide world. And then you just write up something, doesn't have to be too big, and then you send it off everywhere. You literally spam the internet. And that's how you start. That's how I start. Well, I spam everybody. And then eventually, it's just like a statistic. Eventually somebody will be like, oh, this sounds interesting, and then they will reach out to you. So I think it's also really important to but if you like really, if spamming is a little bit overwhelming and maybe it's too much, which is fair, you could, as I said at the beginning, start with small meetups, and like even webinars, and then remembering that you are really, really passionate about things. And then yeah. Oh, I just saw the chat, and I'm just not gonna get distracted by it. But yeah, I think it's also important, yeah, to practice in front of friends. What I did actually before even starting was tried improv, which was really, really scary. And then after trying improv and trying to just think of things on the spot and talk to other people without a script on stage, like having a script and then do like submitting little essays that could possibly give me a chance to speak at a meetup, and talk about my favorite topic was really easy and really simple, and it didn't sound as scary up until the moment of actually doing it. That's when I got really, really scared. But then I was like, fine, like, what's gonna happen? Nothing. I'm just gonna say the thing that I'm really passionate about, and it kind of flows from there. But if you wanna but if you really want to, also you could you could get an outline of your talk. So even if you're not really sure what you want to talk about yet, and you have so many things that you really want to share, but you are passionate about them, but you're like still not 100% sure, you could ask your friends and be like, what am I really annoying about? Like, what are the things that I keep bringing up, that are related to tech? And people will tell you, but even brainstorming will help as well. So that's, and then you submit it and spam the internet. That's how I think is really important to to start. Like start with communities, think about things that you're really passionate about, and then spam the internet and see what happens. And think of the travel. Think of the travel. Next slide. So why you should do it? Again, I said before, think of the travel, think of the conferences, think of the knowledge that you will get. So this is really, really interesting to me. So when I said, oh, there's a topic that you're really annoying about, and you talk to, and you're really passionate about, and then you get to learn even more about that topic, and that is really, really, really fun. It's like doing something for yourself. So instead of actually, I don't know, like I would really focus on the positive thing that you will gain out of the whole experience. Yes, it will build your personal brand. You will get a better understanding of what you teach and a thing that you are really passionate about. And yes, if you don't talk about what you can do, no one will know what you can do. But I also think it's you also get to see how many people have a really similar journey. And I think this is really important because I remember thinking like, nobody really cares. I mean, why would they care what I have to say? I'm only like, I have 3-4 years of experience and that's it. I mean, what am I going to share to somebody who is a really well seasoned developer, engineer, or even like a founder? I mean, why would I even like, it's even a thought of it is overwhelming. But what was so much more interesting is to see that no matter how old you are, no matter how like no matter gender, no matter culture, we all have so much similar. It's true. Like it's so many similarities. So I really, really think that it's such a good experience to learn that so many people actually share your interests, and you being you like, and like, yes, at the beginning I was like, oh, be annoying, but no, and think of the things that you're annoying. But actually what it means is like you realize that topics that you're passionate about, no matter how like niche they seem, they're actually like there are a lot of people that want to learn about it, and like they can connect with you, and you get to make friends, you get to learn about things. Yes, you get free travel, but it turns out when you're like, I'm gonna manifest a travel, or I'm gonna go there, when you're there, it actually, what's really cool is the connections, and you don't even care where you are. So that's really, really, it's just a beautiful experience, seriously. And then teaching people things that they don't know about is it's a great opportunity to actually be able to share things that you wanted to be shared with you when you were starting up, and for some reason there was just nobody who could actually help, like who could, you just didn't find any resources. So to be able to actually be that for somebody else is so exciting, and it's very, very nutritious for your brain, and yes, it will be scary. As I said, you might spam the internet like I did, and then they say yes, and you're like, why would you say yes? Now I have to actually prepare, and I have so many deadlines. But then you're like, it's actually a really good opportunity to teach your brain that there is nothing that can stop you from actually achieving whatever you want to achieve. And that's so good. It's really, really healthy. So that's why you should do it. It's for yourself and for your brain, and then you get people that will listen to you for a bit, which is very cool. It's very exciting. Yeah, and you definitely have something special to share. That's, of course, that's like a no-brainer. So yeah.
Amazing. All right. Thanks, Nina. So I 100% agree with everything Nina just said. And I am going to move on from that and talk a little bit about where a lot of us, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us got started in speaking. And this is not you start here and then you don't do it anymore. This is something that all of us, I think, still fairly regularly are attending or speaking at meetups. And the reason that most people started a meetup is because it's less scary than a conference, right? You're in front of maybe 20 people instead of being in front of 2,000 people. There's also uh, meetups tend to be a lot less picky about their speakers. So when you're applying to speak at a conference, often there's a cost involved with them having you speak at that conference. And as a result, they're a lot more picky about who they have on stage. They can't pay for everyone's airfares. They can't put up everyone at hotels, and they can't cover the free tickets for everyone that wants to speak. At a meetup, you don't have any of those problems. So it's a great place to get started in getting experience. It's a great place to build your talks because a lot of us, what we'll do is actually prepare a talk and then deliver that at meetups before we actually pitch it to a conference. And it also means that you can hear what other people are talking about and get an idea for what kind of topics resonate well with an audience. So there's so many great reasons to speak at a meetup, but something that often is a challenge is working out which meetup to speak at. So we brain dumped a bunch of the ones that we've spoken at here, and you'll notice that there are a lot of Perth ones on here. We did try and add in some ones from Brisbane as well. And I know that there are people from all around Australia, maybe even outside of Australia here. What I would say is that the meetups that I speak at are probably almost entirely different from the meetups that Michelle speaks at, that Nina is likely to go to, that Amy is likely to go to, because we specialize in different areas. So the first thing I would say is find meetups that connect well with what you're interested in. Following on from what Nina said earlier, what are the things that you're really passionate about? What would you like to hear other people talk about? Go to those, listen to those other people talk, and then think to yourself, I would like to hear a talk on this topic, but nobody's put forward a talk on that topic yet. So excellent, that's your opportunity. You can be the person that puts the talk forward on that topic. It's also a great way of kind of making connections, because often the people who are running meetups are going to be the kind of people who are on organizing committees for conferences. So you'll be able to hear about things like when are the conference call for proposals coming out and stuff like that. So for those of you who are based in Perth, some of the ones, like just a quick round of questions for our panel. What's the last, say, 3 meetups that you've been to, Michelle? You're muted. You need to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Probably the .NET meetup, because that's here in the Perth office. Maybe the Azure meetup, maybe the Student Accelerator, maybe Code Without Barriers. The reason why I put all of those on there, though, is not because those are the ones I go to, but I host a lot of those. And therefore, if any of you do want to talk at one, you just have to reach out to me and I will find you a meetup in Perth to go to. If you're in another region, another area, then I absolutely have a bunch of recommendations too, but you can find them in meetup groups, so meetup.com, and you can find them for your area. But like Joe says, the organizers for the meetup groups are the organizers for the conferences. And so if you test your talks there and talk to the organizers, you are more likely to get selected for the conferences.
Absolutely. And as also a meetup organizer, I can confidently say that one of the biggest challenges that meetup organizers have is often finding speakers. So even if you've never done it before, the vast majority of meetup organizers would love to have you come and speak there. Amy, what's the last 3 meetups that you've attended or spoken at?
Yeah, no, so this one's going to be really weird and not remotely help people at all. So there would be one in Norway, which is the last one I went to a few weeks ago. Probably not useful for anyone listening in today. Otherwise, does She Codes count? It would be She Codes or Perth Azure User Group. And again, that one's mainly just because I'm one of the organizers.
Excellent. And I think it is useful for people to know that you're not just limited necessarily to the ones that you're in. So whenever I travel to the East Coast, I always reach out to the organizers of the WordPress meetups there, because I run the Perth one and I know how much it sucks finding speakers. So I always reach out to them and say, hey, do you want me to speak while I'm over? I'm not going to get paid for it, but it's a way to kind of give back to a community that I'm pretty passionate about. Nina, what's your meetup background look like?
I just go on meetups and I network with people. I don't think I've spoken like on a few meetups. Like I think obviously She Codes. I think no, I haven't spoken on any other meetups. I just go and I eat the food and I mingle with people and I learn so much. But I should definitely speak more as well. I always get distracted by pizza.
Amazing. I think the last 3 meetups that I've been to was the WordPress Perth meetup, which I run, the Laracon Perth or Laravel Perth meetup. And I can see that we've got Michael on the call with us, who runs Laracon, which is the Laravel conference. So hi, Michael. And the other one is the Female Coders Collective, which is a really fun meetup and very diverse kind of collection of talks. So we've had everything from, I think I did a talk there once about analogies and using analogies to communicate tech ideas. And Michelle did a talk at the next one about how she uses Copilot. So very sort of diverse topics across that one. More aimed at beginners and really interesting and safe space to deliver presentations and stuff like that. So yeah, there's loads of options there, and we really encourage you to go and have a look and think outside of the box of what could you do before getting on stage at a conference to build a little bit of experience, to build your personal brand a little bit, because often, especially some of the bigger meetups will actually record them, and then you'll be able to link to examples on YouTube of where you've spoken before, which is something that a lot of conference organizers are really interested in. So there was a couple of questions about how much should I get paid, when should I get paid, and things like that. And I think it's important at this point to talk about whether or not there is an expectation to get paid to do a presentation, whether that's a speaking gig, whether it's being on a panel, or whether it's at a conference. And today we're mainly focusing on conferences. So I'm going to share with you the things that I've discovered, and that sort of as a group, we kind of brainstormed what are the things that are useful to be knowledgeable about. I've also popped a QR code up in the top right corner. I don't even know which of our panelists today left this link there, but I went and had a look at it and I was like, oh, that's really useful. So have a QR code, friends. But I think the first thing to understand is that not all conferences are going to pay their speakers or cover things like travel. And that's fundamentally because not all conferences are the same. So the first thing that I would be looking at is whether or not is like, what is the ticket price? So if the ticket price is less than $100, the chances are very, very strong that that is not a conference that is making a profit, and it's not a conference that has a significant budget for paying speakers. So they're probably not going to cover things like travel, things like accommodation for speakers that are coming from out of town. In a situation like that, usually the most that you would expect would be to have a free ticket to that conference. So the 2 big ones that I know we're involved with, but I think in general, the ones that you can think of that would be like this are DDD, which is all sort of volunteer organized. All of the tickets themselves are actually kind of discounted by sponsorship. And the other one like that I'm familiar with is the WordCamps, which are WordPress conferences, which I've been involved with quite a bit. And again, because they're all volunteer organized and they don't have a budget to pay their speakers, nor are they actually allowed to, it is expected that you'll find your own way there and cover the costs of that. So it's often better to look at ones like that are local to you, that don't require you to travel. But I have put a note at the bottom about some tips around that, because having said that, the first 6 conferences I spoke at were WordCamps, and I got paid to travel to 2 of those that were international. So three of those, sorry, that were international. So I would say that there are definitely still opportunities out there. If that's something that's interesting to you, you just need to know where to look. So the next thing is that actually just being able to attend the events is really valuable, even if you're not getting paid to travel to them. Sometimes it might be a case of like it's a $2,000 ticket, and even if you do the math and you're like, look, I really want to go to Sydney to see my best friend anyway, Brisbane to see my best friend anyway. Maya, if you're on here, hi, I'll see you in Brisbane later on this year. So sometimes just being able to go to a place and having a tax deductible reason to go there, and also a free ticket and being able to go to all of the events and stuff like that can still be worth it. So do have a look at what the perks are that are available. And the question you need to ask yourself is it going to be right for me? Is this a brand that I want to support? Is there content that I want to deliver that I would like to get paid to deliver in cooler places that maybe I want to test out first? Or I want to, maybe they're taking some professional videos or photos and stuff like that. This is a great opportunity at some of those lower cost conferences, especially the free and the really cheap ones. Have a look at what other things you might still get out of it. So then we come to the ones that are actually going to legitimately give you some kind of reimbursement. And this is obviously the goal that most conference speakers want to get to, because for a lot of us, the big perk of speaking at conferences, at least for me, I know for Nina, and given how often Michelle and Amy are gallivanting around the world, I'm going to assume that it's a big part of the reason they do it as well, is the fact that it's really nice if you get to go to Washington, DC or Norway, or even if it's Sydney, and not have to pay the airfare. Because I don't know if any of you have checked recently, but flights from Australia to literally anywhere are obnoxiously, absurdly expensive. So if you can get someone else to pay those airfares and maybe put you up in a nice hotel, probably nicer, let's be honest, than what you would choose to stay in if you had to pay for it, then it really makes sense to start looking at how you can get those costs covered for you. So in my experience, and I'll quickly get Michelle and Amy and Nina just to share their experience as well, but in my experience for conferences that have a decent budget, my expectation is normally that I would have a free ticket, that my accommodation would be covered, and that my airfares would be covered, usually up to a certain amount. So sometimes there will be a cap on how much of the airfares are covered. Again, this depends on the conference and whether or not they've asked me to speak there, or whether I've applied and I'm up against people that maybe their airfares are going to be a lot lower than mine. So they might say, for example, there's a up to $800 or something like that will be covered of airfares. So that's my experience. Michelle, what would you say about getting paid to speak at conferences? You've just muted yourself. You were unmuted and now you're muted again.
Okay, good. Where people talk about getting paid to speak at conferences, I consider that like a speaker fee thing, where you hear like these keynote speakers asking for like $20,000 to speak and all of that. That is not what we do at all. That is much more sort of like motivational speakers who are doing it for a living. What we do as developers who are speaking at technical conferences, well, for me, definitely, my goal is I only submit to speak at conferences that will pay for my airfare and accommodation if it's going to be overseas. For within Australia, I will look. If it's a community conference, like DDD Perth is the largest developer conference in the country. There are 1,500 developers or tech people that turn up for that conference. To be able to say that you spoke at DDD Perth is an amazing thing for your speaker's CV. So people come from all over the world and pay their own way to go to that conference for that. They pay for the keynote and the lock note, I think, to come. So for any DDD, I would pay my own way. I would try to find ways to be working in that town. So Amy and I did DDD Brisbane last year. Amy was the keynote. She was awesome. And I got Microsoft to pay for my flights and accommodation because I was there on a tour for YOW, which is another conference, which I didn't speak at, but I made myself useful to them. I was a stage host, and I was working on a stand for Microsoft. So like there are plenty of ways you can volunteer to help with conferences as well, to make yourself known to the conference organizers, even when you don't get picked to speak. And the picking to speak thing, what Nina was saying about spam all these places, what she means is it's a numbers game. Amy and I both spoke at NDC Oslo this year. You have a 2% chance of getting selected to speak at NDC Oslo because they get more than 1,000 submissions from speakers all over the world. Because everyone wants to go to Oslo, paid for, and their hotel paid for, because those Nordic countries are expensive to get to and expensive to stay in. So I wouldn't have been at all upset if I didn't get picked, because the chances of you getting picked is so low. So what Nina means is apply for a whole bunch of conferences and don't let it hurt your ego if you don't get selected, because it's not personal at all. In a lot of cases, people like Amy and I do not get picked. We'll get a lot of rejections from conferences. So yes, so being paid, that's all I'm hoping for, hotel and flights, and not for every conference. I have applied for one called Code Motion in Milan, and they don't pay for your flights or your hotel. But what I said to myself is, I would really not mind going on holiday in Milan. And I could do a conference while I'm there, because one of the girls who's an organizer of it, I met her at the last 2 conferences I was at, and I loved her. And so I thought I'll put in for it. And if I get selected, I will decide later whether I am going to pay that cost myself. I will look at the flights and the hotels and see whether it's affordable and see whether I want to have a holiday there out of my own pocket. So, you know, I'm really, really old compared to a lot of you, and therefore, and I have no kids apart from my fur babies. So therefore I do have some disposable income if I want to use it. If you're at the start of your career, you might more be asking yourself, can I fund my own way to Brisbane for DDD Brisbane than can I fund my own way to Milan? So I'm not advocating at all that you find money to the world.
That's actually a really good segue, Michelle, into what the last thing that I just wanted to talk about on the slide before I hand over, I think, to you, actually. So have a sip of water and I'll hand back over to you in a second. And also, hi, everyone. This is my cat. She's an asshole. She's very pretty, though. But she just started screaming at me. The choice is she can either be on my lap or you can hear her scream. So you'll just let me know in the comments which one you would prefer. So cat, okay, the preference is cat, excellent. So the thing is that I mentioned that WordCamps are where I started out because I'm 100% self-taught, and WordPress is an open source piece of software that's used by 2/3 of the internet. So as much as people hate it, it was a great place for me to start out and to get an idea about sort of how conferences worked. But there is a rule that WordPress conferences are, sorry, I've cut my desk. WordPress conferences are not allowed to pay their speakers. However, they are an open source conference, and there is a problem with underrepresentation in tech at conferences. And something that I discovered early on is that there are actually a lot of people who will still pay for you to go and speak at a conference that can't cover your costs. So I mentioned before that I have spoken at, I think it's 6 WordCamps now. So I was to travel to the Philippines to speak at WordCamp Cebu. At the end of last year, I had all of my transport and accommodation paid to go to WordCamp US, which is the biggest WordCamp in the world, to speak at that one. And I again had all of my my flights and my accommodation covered there. Certainly cannot afford to pay my own way to the US at the moment. Not going to happen. Those flights were obnoxious. So that was quite pleasant. And I had a a reimbursement. It wasn't entirely covered, but I got like a little bit of a discount, I guess, or a bit of a grant for New Zealand as well. So that's 3 different international ones that I've gone to. 2 of them were completely covered and 1 of them was partially covered. So I've got some resources on the final slide about some of the things that are available, and there is actually an option for anyone who is front end or UX or WordPress that is interested in that. WordCamp Sydney closes at the end of July, and so does the grant program for that is being run by one of just the sponsors who went, you know what, we want to have better representation, and for technology that often means women. And I know that we've got a few conference organizers on the call with us. So Michael, I'm going to throw you under the bus here. Would you like to see more women applying to speak at Laracon next year?
Yes.
Excellent. So he's got at least 2 this year, and they're both G-coders. So good work, team. And Nina went and spoke at Laracon last year as well. So on that note, I will share those links towards the end, but I'm going to hand over now to Michelle, and she's going to talk to us about how to overcome that imposter syndrome that we alluded to earlier.
Yes, I'm not on mute, right? Good. Okay. Imposter syndrome. Yes, when you first start out, and in fact, every day after that for the rest of your life, you will have this voice in the back of your head that says, you're not good enough. You shouldn't be the one standing up on the stage. You shouldn't be the one talking about it. There are other people that are more experienced than you, that are better than you, that are smarter than you. And most commonly what I find is so conference organizers like Michael, he might reach out specifically to women to say, would you speak at my conference, because he realizes that everyone that applied is a dude, and so he's trying to be proactive to mix up his run sheet. And the problem for Michael is that when he does that, he approaches women and they will automatically say, oh no, not you, you don't want me. I'm not that good. I'm not that experienced. You want my colleague George. He knows what he's talking about. And he's like, oh my God, the last thing I need is another white dude. I've already got 1 million of them. I want you. And you're standing there saying, oh, no, not me, this dude. And if not that dude, then this dude. No. And I think the problem, like mostly for women, but, you know, not entirely, is that as you were growing up, people taught you to be quiet, to be humble, to be sweet. And your default was no, not yet, I'm not ready, I'm not 100% prepared, I'm not whatever. Whereas your brothers, they were brought up fearlessly to play in the mud and to climb the trees. They told them to just go for it. And when they fell over, they said, get up, little man, and go again. Whereas little girls, when you fall over in the mud, they scoop you up and say, oh, my poor little baby, come inside and let's clean you and put a nice new pink dress on you. So they, like, whole of society and your family prepares you to be cautious, whereas they teach our brothers to be brave and fearless. I would like you to flip that switch, flip your default. So instead of automatically saying no, when someone like Michael approaches you, you automatically say yes. Say yes to the things that scare you. The minute someone comes to you and says, could you do this for this meeting? And you automatically think, yes, I could easily do it, then you should say no to that, because what that ends up with you doing is you being the one that fetches the coffee for everyone in the meeting, you being the one that takes the meeting minutes, and some other dude who is braver than you is the one that stands up in front of the meeting and presents all the findings and looks like he's the one that did all the work when probably you did it all. Fear and excitement feel like exactly the same thing on the inside. And so what you need to do is reframe in your brain. when you feel fear, think that's not fear, it's excitement. I am excited about this opportunity, not I'm afraid of it. And you can prepare yourself. If you look at Amy and I know for a fact that both of us do not write our conference talks before we submit to speak at the conferences. We write our conference talks a lot closer to the conference, and we no longer panic about them because actually we've been doing them a million times before. It is simply that. And I think I have put that on the list there. Practice again and again and again until you are no longer afraid. So another friend of mine, Layla, who speaks at a lot of conferences too, she will prepare her talk and she will practice it in front of her 2 young children who do not understand at all, but they sit looking at her quite attentively while she teaches them about stuff like service bus and messaging queues and stuff like that. She will then do that talk in the office to her teammates. She will do it in the office to a lunch and learn, so a bunch of employees that come in more randomly that she doesn't know as well. She will ask them each time for feedback. She will then do it at a meetup or user group. It is really practice, practice, practice for her. And then by the time she does it at a conference, she's already done it like a load of times before. She's still doubting it. At that point in her head, it is that voice in your head that constantly says, you're still not good enough. You're still not the #1 expert in the field. You still don't know it more than everyone else. But in fact, I've been to a lot of conferences now, and the talks that I choose to go to are not the people who are the biggest experts in the field. In fact, the biggest experts in the field are often quite niche, and they want to talk in depth on a topic. They do not want to teach a beginner talk or an intermediate talk. You remember when you went to She Codes the first time and you met some of the mentors? Those mentors had been attendees at the She Codes workshop before, and after they had done that workshop, they came to be mentors at the next one. You don't need to be an expert in your field to talk about something. You just need to be one step ahead of the people who know nothing. And so when you are explaining, when you submit to speak at a conference, it will ask you, is this a beginner level talk? Is it an intermediate talk? Or is it an advanced talk? And if it's a beginner level talk, you can say that. And your experience, your voice as someone who just learned this thing, who can talk about, these are the things that I struggled with. This is what I didn't understand. This is how I overcame those problems when I was learning this topic. This is what I have found to be the best way to move forward on it. That makes a really good talk. And there's a lot of people that want to hear that. Wherever you are in your career, whatever it is you want to talk about, there are people who are behind you on that topic and they would like to know more, and they would like to hear it in your voice, not in the voice of necessarily an expert. There are some people that do want to go and see the experts and do want to see very niche topics that are very dryly presented in depth. I don't ever see those, even though there are some things that I might be very advanced at. I never want to see a talk in that style. I want to see a bit of a performance. And so there is something for everyone, you know? Those rooms are packed out. People who are expertly presenting stuff very dryly, those rooms are packed out too, because there is a whole audience of people for those people. But it's not for me. I want to see something different. And I'm sure you have your own ideas about what you want to see too. So remember that as well. It's not for you to count yourself out of the running by saying, I'm not good enough. Apply. If you're applying to something like NDC Oslo, you have 2% chance of being selected. When they reject you, it's not because your application was not good enough, or at least it was not good enough with 98% of the other applicants. And there were some really professional speakers, really experienced speakers in that rejection list. I could show you my rejection list now, and there's so many talks in there that have been knocked back. So yes, it's about not taking it personally. It's about trying and trying again. It's about getting a lot of practice. Remember, no one ever walked out of the birth canal. That's my favorite thing to tell people. We can walk and talk and feed ourselves so easily now, but if we gave up on that the first time we tried it because we weren't good at it, then we would all die as babies on day one. But we allow ourselves to take almost 2 years to learn how to walk, how to eat properly, how to talk. In fact, talking, I don't know, like you don't have to be even talking at 6 now, right? There's plenty of kids that are still gabbling around at 6 without all their words in the right order yet, and that's fine. They'll get it eventually. Same for you. You don't have to be perfect right away, but what I do recommend is you be you. You don't try to be someone else when you're presenting. You try to bring who you are to the talks that you are creating. Yeah, that voice in your head that holds you back from opportunity is not your friend. It is absolutely your enemy. Do not listen to it. Never listen to it. It might be your mum. It might be a teacher. I don't know who it is, but don't listen to it. It doesn't know shit. And yeah, imagine you are your brother. Imagine you are any white boy from the office. They are all brought up to have a lot more confidence than you have been brought up to have. And you know you're good. You know you're better than them. So, just feel it and do it. I think I did see in chat someone asking me if Microsoft pays for me to do things. No, Microsoft pays for me to do Microsoft pays for me to do things that Microsoft wants me to do. So if I spoke and keynoted at a few Microsoft events last year, they shipped me there, absolutely. While I was there, I tried to do other things. So while I was working in Brisbane for Microsoft, it aligned perfectly with DDD Brisbane's dates. That is not a coincidence. DDD Brisbane looked at the dates for other conferences like YOW, saw that YOW was going to be in Brisbane on this date, realised they would have the opportunity to get some international speakers speaking at DDD Brisbane. So they put their conference right next to YOW's so that they could get international speakers for free. So conference speakers are very smart this way, often trying to line things up. So yes, Microsoft paid for those flights and hotel because I was going to be there anyway for another conference. So yeah, that's how that is. Choosing your conference, that's not me, is it?
I think it is, but we can handball it to Amy if you prefer.
No,
I don't think it really matters. I think we
I
could
can
all talk on this
start
one.
it if it's me, and anyone else can chip in. I like NDC conferences because they pay for your flights and your accommodation all over the world, and I will often take a few extra days and pay for an Airbnb so that I consider that holiday combined with speaking at conferences. I love all the DDDs. They don't pay for anything, but they are fantastic community conferences. The organizers of those conferences are often involved in other bigger conferences, like the organizers of DDD can be organizers of NDC Sydney and Melbourne. NDC is bringing conferences to Sydney and Melbourne in 2025. So the call for content is not open yet, but when it is, you would be able to apply for both of those conferences because they're doing them back to back. So that's super convenient. And if you get into those conferences, much more likely because as first-time speakers, because it's less expensive in Australia, then after you've proven yourself at those, you can go all around the world. And Amy is speaking at every NDC conference they have this year.
World tour?
Yeah, and last year as well she did. Programmable, I did the keynote and the lock note at those this year. I hadn't actually noticed them before this year, but I saw them in Sessionize, and Sessionize, maybe one of you can put that link in the chat, is one of the most popular content submission tools. So NDC, DDD Perth, is it programmable? Yeah, programmable. All use Sessionize to accept their call for contents, and you can, if you submit stuff in there, it saves your talks. So when you submit them to other conferences, you can just say, yes, use the thing that I submitted there. You can just select your talk from a drop-down list and you don't have to fill everything in again. So I really like that. And you can see in Sessionize whether they're going to pay for your flights and accommodation or not. That information is normally all in there. Yow, I love them, but they are a single conference stream. What that means is, whereas in DDD Perth, you might have, 6 speakers speaking at the same time in different rooms. In Yow, you have 1 speaker speaking at a time. So you can only have like 5 or 6 talks in one day. Also, they have in the past tended to only go for people who have published a book. They are under new management now, and so they might not be that strict, but they are unlikely to pick you as a new speaker. You need to have proven recordings of your talks to show that you are a very, very good speaker. Amy is a world-class international keynote speaker, and she has not spoken at Yow yet. So get in line behind Amy is what I would say for Yow. But Jake Ginnivan, who is a local Perth guy and not even an MVP, has spoken at one. And all he did for that was to create his own product. So, you don't have to write your own book these days. You can actually just create a product. PyCon, that's like an amazing one. I would love to do that. They have them all over the world. They don't pay for you. But it's very hard to get into. And obviously Python needs to be your primary focus of your submission for that. Latency, this is a local Perth one. I don't think they pay for anything, but if you're in Perth, you can submit. It's a single stream conference again, so you don't have many chances to get on the one sheet. Besides Perth, the security conferences, all the security conferences never get enough submissions. And so if you are in security, submit to B-Sides Perth, B-Sides Canberra, B-Sides, I think Sydney or Melbourne, they have them around. And yes, if you submit to that, you have a very good chance of getting selected, even though those are mostly single stream conferences. They don't get enough submissions. People do not want to talk in security. And yeah, I don't know about the other ones. So
I can chime in on a couple of them here. So WordCamp and Laracon. Laracon is the one that Michael runs, and a bunch of us have spoken at those. I think, Amy, you've spoken at Laracon before? Is that right?
Yes, I spoke at Laracon in 2019.
Yep, and then we've had Nina, I think, spoke last year at Laracon, and Mandy Michael, who some of you might be familiar with, is speaking this year, as am I. I think of all of us, I'm probably the only one that actually does any code in Laravel. So even though that is what the conference is about, they do also invite people to speak on other things. So Nina, what was your topic that you spoke about last year?
Sorry. It was about developerhood actually, and just my personal story. And then it was really fun actually. We generated images live. That was really exciting. It was on AI. So yeah, it was definitely not anything about Laravel.
Yeah,
but I've learned a lot about Laravel.
It's a great platform, just saying. So WordCamp again is about WordPress, but similar, as long as it is relevant to WordPress, your talk will still be considered. So you do kind of need to know what it is, in the same way that I anticipate if you were going to speak at Lyricon, you would probably have at least Googled what Laravel is and how your talk might be relevant to that audience. The other one that I think Michelle didn't mention is web directions, and that's another really popular one where I've seen a lot of she-coders speaking at that. I know Nina's spoken at web directions. I've spoken twice at web directions. It's in Sydney. They do cover your flights and your accommodation. The hotel they put you up at is really nice. It's also one of the best conferences I've ever been to for the actual content. They've got, I think, 5 tracks, and the quality of the speakers and the topics that they choose is phenomenal. So that's a great one. And they also are really committed to bringing in new speakers every year. So if you're looking for that first one that you're going to get paid to travel somewhere, then web directions is a great option. And also because they've got so many streams about so many different things, there's usually something for everyone there. So whether your experience is UX or Python or artificial intelligence or security, there'll be a stream that you would be a good fit for at web directions. Is there anything to add on that side, or should we move on to the last couple of slides and then get into the Q&A bit? What do you reckon? Should we move on? 3, 2, 1. All right, cool. Amy, tell me a little bit about picking a topic to speak on.
Ooh. I suppose I was kind of lucky that I didn't actually have to pick a topic tonight, because everybody else will pick their topics and I got the leftover ones. Picking a topic is hard, especially if you sit down and go, what am I going to talk about? I don't know what topic to talk about. It can be really overwhelming, and that's a hard thing to do. But this gets much easier with time, and you can help to have a couple of questions in the back of your mind that make it easier to come up with topics as you go. So things like, what are you passionate about right now? Is there anything that's really exciting you? Anything you'd like to know more about? What are you learning right now? We had a couple of people asking, I don't feel like I'm an expert, and Michelle talked about that earlier. Am I still able to give a talk? As long as you know just like a teeny tiny bit more than your audience does, you know enough to give a talk. I have absolutely submitted talks on a topic that I was either learning about or wanted to learn about. And then when the talk got submitted to the conference, I had to learn about the thing to write the talk. And that stresses a lot of people out. If that's not you and you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's totally fine. But it also puts you in a really interesting perspective. There are a lot of people who know a lot of what they're talking about, and they give some really amazing in-depth presentations. But when you've just learned about something, you're in the same point that your audience is going to be in. And so that means you're able to remember exactly what it was like to try and understand that thing and to try and get your head around it. So that's a really great point to be in there. So don't feel like just because you're not an expert doesn't mean you aren't qualified to give a talk. So is there a thing that you do that you're better than everyone you know? That's a great thing to give a talk about. It doesn't even have to be about tech as well. There are a whole lot of other either core skills talks, so non-technical presentations that you could give. So it could just be something else that you do. And there's also, I've seen a lot of really amazing presentations about learning through other parts in life. And so seeing people give presentation, I've seen a presentation about how learning about knitting and getting better at knitting and how that helps them to understand programming better. So if you can find something like that, that's still a great topic to give a talk about. What is the thing you'd love to be known for? This is kind of a really important thing, because don't give talks that you're not interested in or you aren't like the slightest bit passionate about. This will be something, if you enjoy it, this will likely be something that you continue to do. So don't feel like you have to give a talk about a topic because everybody else is, if it's not something you're interested in. I know we've got a lot of people who are really interested in AI here tonight based on people asking for AI events. I get people asking me, you know, why haven't you given a talk about AI? Do you have a talk about AI you're going to give? No, I am not interested in giving a talk about AI. There are plenty of people that are, but it is not something that I am passionate about. I have nothing against it. I love using AI in my day-to-day, but it is not a topic that I would like to talk about. I would like to leave that to people who are super excited about it and want to give those presentations. So don't feel like you have to talk about something just because everyone else is. What bothers you? Find something nitpicking, something that really annoys you. Some of these presentations are your most amazing ones. I have a talk that I've been giving at a bunch of events on building websites without JavaScript. We have too much JavaScript on the internet. We have too much JavaScript everywhere. I still use JavaScript, but I get annoyed when everyone uses it as the answer for everything. So I gave a talk on building websites without JavaScript and just really managed to annoy a lot of people on the internet. But I also had a lot of people come up and tell me that they learned something and they didn't realize that they could do things without JavaScript. And if you could turn the clock back, what would you love to teach yourself to make your life easier? Think of these sorts of questions and think about how you can then come up with ideas. This is something that really helps to do as you go. So keeping these questions in mind and starting to jot things down. So I have a list of talk topics as I go, oh, that's actually a really great idea for a talk, and I put it on the list. And then at some point I'll sit down and I'll flesh it out into a bit more of a talk. Sometimes I have fully fleshed out content. Sometimes I literally come up with just like a really great catchy title and it goes from there. So starting to get in the habit of jotting these things down, and it will get easier to pick things as you go. I think Jo, while I take a drink of water, because I got really passionate about picking a topic.
Thursday. Oh, sorry, I am. Wait, am I muted? I'm not muted. Cool. There's a
No.
reason we chose Amy, and she says that like she got the leftovers. Actually, what happened is we were like, Amy's doing pick a topic, we'll work out the rest of it. And the reason for that is that if you haven't ever had a chance, you should definitely go along to one of the DDD workshops that is run, and Amy and Michelle co-ran the one last year. And Amy
It was
is just
mostly
like,
Amy. Michelle assisted.
yeah, well, I mean,
Amy's in
Michelle
charge.
assisted, but yeah, it was mostly Michelle, mostly Amy. And it was amazing, and she has some excellent resources, which is a good segue into resources to help you out. One of which you'll find is Amy's speaker resources. So the problem is that nobody can click on these links except for us right now in the slides. So what we are going to do is you will get a copy of the recording and all of these resources in your email at the end of the webinar today. But did you maybe just want to mention some of these, Amy, and then the ones that you don't know what they are, we'll fill in the rest?
I can. I do want to just like correct you in the slightest bit, Jo, that absolutely if you ever hear about DDD, any of the DDDs running speaker training or CFP workshops, go along to it. I am not running them this year though, so that is not me doing it, but they do have I do believe they're building it based off of the slides that I use, which is based off of the slides that the previous speaker trainer was using, and have a lot of the same resources.
Oh, I still use the slide that your Notion template
Yes.
is still what I use when I put together my topic things. So,
Yes.
which I believe is in your Amy speaker resources page, which is
Yes.
also on Notion.
Yes, it is. So I'll go from the top down so I don't miss them. So Noticed is a website service that is kind of a little bit like sharing, but also a little bit social media for speakers. It's a really great website if you're wanting to put together a bit of a speaker portfolio to show to conferences. It is literally built by two tech speakers. So they thought of all of the things that we would look for. And they also have a blog, which has a lot of really amazing advice. I haven't written on it for a while because it's sort of a free side project they don't make much money on. But there's some really amazing advice that absolutely still stands. Jess Budd, who is also a She Codes mentor. Sorry, I haven't spoken all day and I'm just getting really passionate. I need to talk way too
Hydrate,
fast.
friends. Hydrate.
Yes. Jess Budd has a couple of blog posts on her speaking journey when she first got started in speaking in the before times. So she also spoke at Laracon, which we mentioned previously, and was the speaker who, that was her first conference, was Laracon. That was the first time she'd ever spoken. I have several blog posts about speaking as well. So that just sort of goes to the filtered tag view when you get the link. DDD Perth is a conference that, as Joe has already said, I've been involved in speaker training for quite a few years. So we have a lot of our resources on there. There's 10 reasons to speak at DDD. Look, a lot of these aren't specific just to DDD Perth. They are applicable to pretty much all of the events that we recommend. If we have recommended an event here this evening, if we've mentioned it, there's a very, very high chance that one of us has spoken at it or one of us knows somebody that has spoken at it, and we are recommending it from either our experience or someone's experience that we trust. So these are some really amazing events. So it's a bunch of reasons for if you're still not convinced that speaking at conferences is a good idea. And then a couple on speaker skills, so starting to put together talks and presentations and then presentation skills. My speaker resources, yes, is just basically a whole bunch of links and templates for doing things because it was just easier to share one link that has everything on there. And Joe, I'm going to assume the last couple of resources were the ones that you were spamming us with today.
Spamming is such a strong word.
You literally said sorry for all of the spam.
Okay, fine. I deserve that. I did. So these are a couple that are for those people who are looking at going to open source conferences and are interested in how you can seek getting some sponsorship for that. So for things like WordCamps, like Python AU, stuff like that, it's really worthwhile getting yourself onto some of the underrepresented in tech speaker databases. So if you just Google search underrepresented in tech, you will find the underrepresented in tech speaker database. It was, full disclosure, started by the WordPress community, but it is not limited to people who work in WordPress. Where we just really like flooding the internet with as many websites as possible. So that one happens to be a great way of being able to point to it and saying, I'm an underrepresented person in tech, you should pay me to go to this conference that I otherwise wouldn't be able to go to. And Support Inclusion in Tech runs a speaker support program. Again, this is the one that I went through to get to the US last year for WordCamp US. And there are other programs out there, but it's a good example of the sort of thing that I'm talking about, of how you can get some support to go to open source conferences that are primarily volunteer led. So not all open source conferences don't provide compensation in terms of paying for travel and that sort of thing for their speakers. Some open source conferences will provide you with travel and that sort of thing, but a lot of them can't because they just don't have the budget for it. So in situations like that, having tools like this at your disposal and knowing that they exist is really valuable. So on that note, let's go to the last slide, which is key dates.
Sorry, Joe,
sorry.
could I just,
Yes.
on the, because I didn't get a chance to talk about the travel earlier. I'm kind of regretting not actually picking my own topic because I was interested in a lot of things. Yeah, so on the whether or not conferences have budget and whether or not you can speak at them otherwise, when somebody tries to organize a conference, there is three things. There is paying for speakers' costs and speaker experience. There is affordable tickets and making it easy for people to attend. And then there is sponsorship, how much money you can convince companies to give you to pay for these things. You cannot have all three. You can't, well, actually, you can't have no sponsors, affordable tickets, and pay for your conference speakers. The money has to come from somewhere. So just have a think about when you're picking the conferences that you're submitting at, have a think about where that money is coming from and whether or not they should be covering something they're not, or whether they're just redirecting that money elsewhere. For example, if a conference has affordable tickets and they've got goods, if they've got affordable tickets and they've got lots of sponsorship coming in, I'm okay with them not paying for a lot of my costs, especially if travel from Perth is expensive. I'm going to be really, it's going to cost a lot. But if I know that there's a lot of sponsors coming in and I know that the tickets are several $1,000s, I'm going to ask a question about why they don't have that budget. So just having a think about where that is that's coming from, and just always asking the question if information isn't clearly displayed elsewhere, and don't feel bad about asking for that, because a lot of time is put into giving a presentation. So don't feel like you don't deserve to be recognized in some way. You shouldn't have to be paying a lot of money for that experience to go. Sorry, that's my thing.
No, I think that is 100% right, Amy. And something to consider as well is, are other people getting paid for that conference? If other people are getting paid for that conference, then you also should be getting paid for that conference. It doesn't matter whether you are new at it or, I mean, sometimes they'll just pay the keynote, and that's fine if you're not a keynote, and that is moderately normal. But in general, if there's 4 people on a panel, everyone on that panel should be getting paid, not just the 3 white guys. So if you're not sure, reach out to someone who's spoken in the past. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I would certainly never have any concern if someone reached out to me and said, hey, I'm thinking about submitting to XYZ conference, and they're not very transparent about whether or not they're paying the speakers for this. I noticed that you did it in the past. Do you mind if I just ask what your experience with this conference was like? 100% of the time I would reply and let them know what my experience was like. And I think that's also a message to conference organizers, not to screw around your speakers, because we talk to each other. So
The speaking community, especially within the tech sector, is so kind and supportive, and everyone wants to help one another. And unfortunately, there's still some conferences that haven't worked that out, because if we have an excellent time, we will tell everybody. If we have a good speaker experience, if we see the attendees are having a good time, we will tell everybody we know to buy tickets to that conference, to sponsor the conference, to come back and present at that conference. But if they're not giving a good experience, if they're not having a good time, we will tell everybody as well. And that will definitely make the conference not suffer, because that sounds mean, but it's a small world. Some people haven't worked that out. So what are some conferences and events, now that I'm going to assume that we've convinced you all that this is a good idea and you can do it, we've given you the resources so you can do it, how and where should you be going? So there's quite a lot of events that, most of these are kind of Australia focused, but there's some international ones. Apologies to anyone who is not in a named city as well. Brisbane, there are a few dates. So She Codes does some workshops and presentations. I mean, Kate's been talking about other webinars as well as us. And these are some really great sessions to come and talk to. We talked about Laracon a couple of times. That's based in Brisbane this year and coming up later on this year. And I'm sure we might be able to get some links shared for socials from any conference organisers in the group, so people can keep an eye out for when proposals open next year. We also have DDD Brisbane, which we've mentioned the DDD conferences a few times, that is not announced. I checked. I'm not allowed to say anything tonight, but if you keep tuned on socials and stalk them on socials, there should be something, an announcement coming out sometime soon. That typically runs at the start of December, so you can expect the CFP to be open around October. Perth, as we said, DDD Perth closes on Friday. That is 2 whole days away. That is still plenty of time available to come up with a talk and submit it. So there's still plenty of time on that one. Otherwise, UX Camp is coming up in November as well. That's a really great small event, and that's one that you don't actually have to submit to ahead of time. You turn up on the date and you give a bit of a spiel about the session that you would like to give, and then people vote for which ones they would like. Michelle mentioned NDC, Sydney and Melbourne, despite the fact that that hasn't officially been announced, and I'm not sure we're meant to tell people about that one yet.
Well, Amy, I have a photograph of that.
I know, but
therefore it is not secret because they had it on the wall at the conference. Thousands
I know,
of us saw it.
Which is why I was okay with putting it on the slides and not any of the other secret dates that I got there. But the websites are not up to date with those dates yet. UX Camp also have sessions in Melbourne, and they said they've got Sydney starting up this year. And PyCon is later on in November. There's a lot of stuff going on in November. There's going to be just take the whole month off of work and go touring the conferences. WordCamp in Sydney as well. In the other cities, we've got DDD Adelaide, which is coming up in November. If you haven't been to Adelaide, that one is a wonderful little friendly conference. It is just really nice and friendly, and apologies to anyone for Adelaide, because I know you get made fun of quite a lot. I know that because everyone makes fun of Perth, so we make fun of Adelaide. But that was a lovely little event. I spoke at the first one, and I'm hoping to go back this year. And then some big international ones is NDC London and Oslo, which will be on next year. And as Michelle has already mentioned several times, they will cover travel and accommodation for speakers, even when you travel all the way from the other side of the world, like Australia. So those are great ones to check out.
Excellent. I know I'm a little bit biased here, but I'm the speaker lead for WordCamp Sydney. So I am fundamentally the person that gets to pick the speakers. And I know for a fact that I do not yet have 50% of my speaker submissions who are female. So I would like that fixed, please. You've got until the 22nd of July if you'd like to submit, and there are $500 travel grants available through the code company, I think they're called. And I'm also on the selection panel for that. So just saying, I'm telling you right now, you are the people that I would like to apply to speak at WordCamp Sydney, and you are the people that I would like to apply for that travel grant. So go out and do it, and let's get my speaker panel up to 50-50 representation, please. Thank you. Okay, shall we move on? I think that's pretty much it. We're just going to move on to a bit of a panel now, and I'm just going to stop my share. We've got my Copilot open there, doing some SQL queries. How do I turn off my share? Here we go. Stop share. There we go. All right. So we've got a couple of questions that have come up in the chat. Is there anything to start with that any of our speakers would like to just discuss in a little bit more detail of the questions that have come up? I know that one of the things that has been asked about is speaker packs. And we've also talked a little bit about things like having a YouTube channel and stuff like that. So I might start there and just ask Michelle, I'll start with you because I know that your YouTube channel has, do you have 500 followers yet? Have we got it up there?
We have 487.
Oh, if we could just get like 25 more people to go and like that right now, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So I have a YouTube channel for my business, and then I've just got a playlist on there called Featuring Joe Minney. And I have a link to that on my speaker pack page, which is on my personal website. And that playlist just has any like meetups that have ever been recorded, any conferences that I've spoken at, if I've been interviewed for something or I've been on a panel or something like that and it's been recorded, anything where I'm on YouTube, someone's like, oh, you're on YouTube. I'm like, excellent. That goes onto my playlist. And most speakers that have been around for a little while will have something like that. And then whether or not you have a speaker pack or like a personal website is really comes down to personal choice. Not everyone does. So I think, Amy, you've got a personal website, right?
Yes, I have a personal website, but that is also because I am a web developer who works for myself. I work for myself, and my brand is the thing that I sell with my content and web development consulting services. So it kind of was an important thing to have a website. I think people would question hiring a web developer who doesn't have a website.
Yeah, I'm kind of in a similar space. I run a web agency, so I kind of have to have a website, but then I also have my personal website so that I can write blog posts about how to sew pockets into your clothes and like share cat videos. So
yes. If anybody doesn't have a website though and feels like they need to have one and don't know where to start, I highly recommend checking out. There's always a bunch of really great templates that you can very quickly clone and put up there. And trust me, they will not be remotely the worst personal website I have ever seen. So yeah, you can just clone something and get it up there. I just want to
that session on how to do that.
Yes.
In fact, I have that in my playlist. There we go. Share.
I want to quickly make a comment as well as somebody who doesn't have a YouTube channel, just that is not the only option. So my speaker page I have linked, which uses Noticed, which I talked about, and has has the list of all of my talks, and I then just link to the videos that the events and conferences include in it. So that's all included as part of that. So YouTube is not the only option, but that's totally fine if you want to do it. I don't like using YouTube.
Yeah, and I think another one to consider if you're maybe at the point where you're like, I absolutely do not want to start my own website and have like my own personal website because that feels like a thing that it does not feel authentic to me. Sessionize, which was mentioned before, is another great option for at least giving you kind of a bit of a landing page where you can share relevant information about being a speaker. So if you don't have a website, a personal website, and you don't want to go and follow a tutorial or watch a video and learn how to do it, which you absolutely can do and should do eventually, if you are serious about doing lots of speaking, something like Sessionize is a great way to get started. And then once you've got the time and inclination to do so, or overcome that fear and that imposter syndrome that says, I shouldn't have a website, why would anyone want to go to my website? Then you can look at doing that.
Sessionize, sorry, I was just wanted to say Sessionize also makes it much easier for organizers. So when you start to get a bit of a reputation and people get in touch with you and go, hey, I saw you gave a talk about this. I think it's amazing. And we want you to come and speak at our event. Do you have more information? Having something like Sessionize where you can send it back and go, absolutely, here is my Sessionize profile, which includes my profile picture, my bio, the lists of talks I've given, the descriptions of the talks, and links to previous videos. That makes things so much easier for both speakers and organizers. So start building those up so that they're available for people. Sessionize have also made, if you have made your profile public, organizers can also start to search for it. So if you give talks on topics and they go, well, I'm looking for somebody who's based in Brisbane that gives talks about these things, they will be able to find you that way if you've listed your profile as public. So that will help to get your talks out there too.
Anything to add to that, Nina?
Yes. So I was thinking, well, with the websites, I have a website and it's just my biography and then a list of the talks I gave. But you also don't have to index it. So it doesn't actually have to be on Google if you feel like you don't want that right now, or if it's not ready. You could just even if having a list of the things that you want, like on your website, of the events that you want to attend is also really good. And then just like keep it like a checklist, or the things that you have already attended, and then like a little, and then later you just build on it. It doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning, just a little something, and then when you're ready to share it with the world, you just share it.
Right. Another question that has popped up is around sort of building confidence and kind of how do you get into public speaking? That's often a big challenge for people. My husband is absolutely terrified of public speaking. Like when he first started, absolutely froze up. Talking into a microphone is really scary. That's something that a lot of people are like, oh, I'm fine with public speaking, and they'll get up at a meetup and they'll speak fine. And the minute you give them a microphone, they'll be like, oh, I don't need the microphone, I'm loud enough. And we're like, no, but you need to use the microphone because we're recording, and it's not going to record very well if we don't give you a microphone. And they can't handle it. Like it's scary because it's new and it's a thing that a lot of people haven't had experience with. So there was someone asked a question about, do you think it's worth being on podcasts? I do. I think that that's a great way of practicing the things that you want to say, but I don't think it's the same as speaking into a microphone in front of people. So I would say I would back up a lot of Michelle's advice that she's given in the chat here. But also my husband, who I mentioned earlier, did do Toastmasters for a couple of years and found it really, really helpful. Not in a small part because it forces you to stand in front of people and talk into a microphone regularly, and gives you tips on how to actually do the speaking part of it. So that is certainly a great opportunity, but meetups again is one of the best ways that you can get public speaking experience. The other thing that I think for me anyway has been really valuable in getting better at talking in front of groups of people was volunteering at stuff. So I've done a whole bunch with tech trails, and I think a lot of the there's probably other people on the call here as well who have been out and done tech trails. So tech trails is a program that's run through Women in Tech WA, and we go out to high schools and you have to deliver the same talk 5 times in a row to a bunch of teenagers. And you might be thinking, why would delivering the same talk 5 times in a row be valuable? Well, it's the most valuable thing because you learn what doesn't work, and that repetition that Michelle was talking about. So if you've got an opportunity to go and talk out your old high school or go and volunteer with an organization or something where you get that public speaking experience, it's absolutely super valuable. Michelle, Amy, Nina, do you have anything to add on public speaking experience over and above what we've already talked about?
I do want to tell a story. No, you go first, Nina.
Go, Michelle. I actually wanted to just mention that I also did an improv comedy course, and then I ended up doing a lot of stage work and just went and did like every month I would go on stage and improvise for like an hour with community, and that was really scary. And the reason I got into improv is because I really wanted to get better at English and sort of at improvising, because I always felt like I had to be perfect at everything, and that was probably the scariest thing. And then that helped a lot with having, being able to just after that give a speech, because you're like, well, at least I have a script. So I think you should definitely do improv. It's so fun, and it will be so scary, but after that everything is easy.
And it's the only, in Perth, it's really hard to actually walk into a room and not see someone because we have such a small community over here. But when I walked into that room, that improv class, I didn't recognize a single person in there, and I was horrified and terrified, and I was scared every time I did it, but it was really, really good for me to push me out of my comfort zone. But that's not the story I want to tell. When I first came to Perth, I was really, really I am super introvert, but I really was. And I would be, even if I would be in meetings at work with like 4 other people, I would sit in that meeting inside my head going, don't ask me a question, don't ask me a question, don't ask me a question. Because I was so nervous and sweating and couldn't think of anything. And if they had asked me a question, I wouldn't have been able to answer it because I hadn't heard anything in the meeting. I was so scared. And when I joined Microsoft, I had a friend there, and she also found public speaking very daunting. And she said, we need to get over this. We need to do something. We are working for Microsoft now. People are going to expect us to speak to people. So we went to the Australian Computer Society and we said we want to speak at an event, and we want to talk on, I don't even remember what was the topic that we gave them, but we're going to do it together. And we practiced for this over and over and over again. And when we got there for the event, we put a Tim Tam on everyone's chair, individually wrapped Tim Tam, because my theory was, even if they hate us and we're terrible, when they go away from this talk, at least they will have a sweet taste in their mouth when they think of us. So, and you do see many speakers go to conferences with like a bag full of, well, Tim Tams, or a bag full of those little caramel koalas or stuff like that to try and bribe their audience. It is a tried and true technique. It totally works. But we got there and the two of us were like shaking. We were literally shaking. We were sweating. We were so shy, but we did it. We got through it. And I have to tell you, I have never been to a single conference or meetup event where the speaker died. You know, I mean,
It's so true. Not a single one. Yeah.
Bad things do not really happen. Like, yes, I have seen people freeze up. And that's okay, because your audience will still be with you. They will try and help you. They will start smiling at you and nodding to try and calm you down. What you need to do in that situation is hold your breath for a second and then take 3 very deep, slow breaths and then just start again. You'll be good to go after you've taken 3 really deep breaths. It's fine. That panic will go away. Look for your friend in the audience, look for someone, meet their eyes, and then carry on. Or, you know, you can go back a step if you want to from where you were before you forgot what you were going to say, and move forward. It's okay. I have never seen an audience completely savage a speaker either, take them down, eat them down to their bones. That has never happened. So whatever your worst fear is, it is not going to happen. It will not be that bad. And after that first event that we did, it wasn't easy, but I have been putting my hand up for every single event that I could come across. Whenever anyone asked me to speak at anything, I said yes. And I kept doing that until probably last year. So I've been in Australia about 11 or 12 years now. And it's only last year that I stopped saying yes to absolutely everything, because I could no longer physically do everything. And so now I will only do things if they are aligned to my passion. So if it's developer related, I will do it. If it's helping women level up, or students, or early in careers, or young people, I will probably do it. The thing that I've probably cut out most that I still get invitations for is small business, in that I could totally do it. I could totally talk to them. I could totally help them. But I don't have time to do stuff anymore that is not aligned to my career or my passions. So I don't do those ones anymore. And I will give them the name of other female speakers who are interested in building their brand. And I do have a lot of male friends who are very good and would be good speakers too, but I try to use my own privilege to raise other women up, because I know numbers wise they need it more than my guy friends need it. My best friend does get a bit stroppy with me about that sometimes though. I just, whatever, George, you'll have to take it.
Nancy just asked a question which was actually going to be my next question. And that was, what has been the most challenging audience you've had? My question was going to be, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you on stage?
I can totally.
Does anyone want to start?
Let me do that one real quick too, because
All right.
So it was also Australian Computer Society, and we had driven down to Bunbury to do a talk, the same talk that I had done at a main branch event. And I was real, you know, I felt real virtuous driving down to Bunbury, because you're driving a couple of hours down there. You feel like a good person after a day's work. You're going down for a much smaller audience because you want to do stuff for the region. So you feel real virtuous. And you get there and there's 5 people in the room. When there are 5 people in the room, they don't feel like they need to sit quietly and watch your presentation. They will interrupt you without warning at any time. They will derail the whole thing to make it about them. And one woman in that room did that because she had just been made redundant, and she literally thought it was really unfair. She wanted her job back in that exact location, in that exact job, and she didn't see why she couldn't have it. And she made the whole thing about her, and I couldn't stop it. And in the end, I abandoned the presentation and just sat down at the table, and we all just sat around the table and had a chat and tried to calm her down and all of that. But yeah, that was 5 people is much worse than 1,400 people.
100%.
100%.
100%. Less is always harder. Yeah, definitely. My worst one would have been in Sydney. I had to take a red eye over. I was speaking in the morning on the Saturday, and my best friend's wedding was on the Friday night, and I was a bridesmaid. So I still had the bridesmaid's hair and the bridesmaid's makeup and everything on when I was on stage, because I literally had not slept. And I got on stage, and my slides are, if anyone's ever seen me give a presentation, my slides and my outfit always match. And something to look forward to, Michael. And I have this fun font that I use on a bunch of my slides. It's a little bit handwritten. And for whatever reason, at this particular conference, the fonts hadn't loaded on I think I had to use their computer and I couldn't use mine or something, and the fonts hadn't loaded. And so where normally there was this fun little handwritten font, it had this gigantic, because the problem with the handwritten font is that you have to have it twice the size of every other font, because it's quite small and thin. And so because it had just used Arial or something to replace it with, this font was gigantic and it was overlapping all of my other content. And it seems not that big a deal. And it wasn't in the grand scheme of things. I still did the presentation. It's up on YouTube. But it really threw me off, because I thought I had prepared, but having had no sleep, wearing stuff that I probably wouldn't have normally worn, my hair was all weird and not normal me, and then having slides that didn't look like I expected them to look at just threw me for a curveball. But I look back at it now and I'm my fonts didn't load. And that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me on stage. It's such a small thing. And yes, it was stressful at the time, but I came through it, and I'm if I could deal with that, I'm pretty sure I can deal with whatever else gets thrown at me. So Amy, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you on stage?
Oh, mine would have been a talk I gave last year, which was pretty much entirely live coding demo. And when I went through to recheck my slides the night before, the entire demo had broken and I could not for the life of me get it to work. And so basically all of that night and the next morning was me doing that. People would come up to me at the conference and be like, hey, you look really stressed. I'm like, nothing's working and I can't get it to work and I don't know what I'm going to do. Yeah, so that was, we had a talk about the code that we would write and what it would do if it worked, but it didn't work. We had to talk about theoretically, this is what you could do, but my computer won't play ball and I just cannot get this to work. But promise me, it really should work. It's just me that's having issues right now. That was absolutely the worst talk that I'd ever given. I apologized to the organizers afterwards, and the really interesting bit was my partner was actually at the conference with me that time. He traveled with me and was in the room, and that was one of the first presentations he'd ever seen me give, and it was not good. It was a bad experience. And now every time I give a presentation, he asks me, is there a live demo? Do you have a backup recorded? Because if you are ever doing a live demo, always have a backup recorded. Because if you have a recording, everything will work fine. You won't need the recording. But if you don't have a recording, the entire thing will blow up. and it would just be horrendous. So I've
story.
never given that talk again. Thankfully, this was one of the NDC conferences, and the organisers had already booked me in for one of their future events, so I had a chance to make up, and hopefully, and yeah, I did make it up to them, and they haven't, completely ghosted me and banned me for life. So yeah.
But remember when you presented at Microsoft, Amy, the first time?
Oh, that was fine. I just didn't have a projector working. Give a talk without slides. That is totally fine. I have given many talks without slides, and it works fine.
Since then, but that was the first time. That was real early on when Amy was not the international keynote speaker that she is today, and I just threw her in front of a user group, and the projectors were not working, and she just totally just did it. She just stood up there and just owned the room. To me, that was the most miraculous thing, because she was real new to it back then.
Yeah. Amazing. Nina, what about you? What's your worst experience?
I think like first time giving a talk, that was where I was sharing so much of my private life and my private story, was nerve-wracking. And I remember, like, even during the speech, I had like 5 people. Maybe you were there, Joe. I was not happy with that talk at all, and not because of the talk, of the content. It's because I was so nervous to share my story for the first time, because it felt so heavy. And now it's like this fun story that we share. It's like these bad teachers, but at that point it was so scary, because it really felt like I was sharing something that I haven't told to anyone before. So that was really, really, really nerve-wracking, but I'm so glad I did it, because yeah,
that's an excellent lead into maybe the last question we've got today. I'm not sure, it depends how long we talk about this, but someone has asked, do you repeat your talk? And Nina, I'll start with you. Did you repeat that talk?
Yes,
that exact same talk that was your worst experience? Yes, how many times have you given that now?
3 times.
3 times?
Maybe. Yes.
Yep. And have you submitted it, or are you still submitting it to other conferences?
Oh yes, I did. I'm gonna give that talk in Melbourne this year. So yes, I'm still submitting it, but I am gonna polish it a little bit. Every time I share it, I see how I can fix it and how I can make it better, more interesting, and more valuable to people. Because now it's not just my story; it's everyone's story.
Yeah. Amy, how many times on average do you give a talk?
What's the most? What's the most you've done one talk, and in how many different countries have you done it?
I was trying to see if I could find some stats on how many, because my looking at my thing tells me that one talk I have given 8 times, and another talk I've given 9 times, and I feel like I've definitely given the one 9 times way more than that. Absolutely repeat a talk. As Nina has said, I'm able to go through and improve things as I go. So the first talk I really started giving at conferences, I gave that at every single event the entire year. It was the same talk, and by the time I got to about September, October, that was the best presentation I had ever given. The talk was so good. My slides were really clean. Everything flowed. The questions that every time I gave the talk, the questions I got from the audience, the conversations I had with people afterwards, the things that I came up with, the things that changed, I was able to integrate into the talk, and it became really good. I've probably on average given most of my main talks about 4 or 5 times, with most of them probably not being more than 10, mainly because about that point I run out of events to give them at. I need to find more events. That means I need to look a little bit further to find other places that I can go through and give them. But you can absolutely repeat talks. The only times events will typically ask is if an event is ever asking for an exclusive talk, they should absolutely be paying for you, not just paying your travel and accommodation, but paying you. If they want an exclusive talk, they need to pay you for the, I'm not joking, hundreds of hours that you are putting into that talk. The other thing you need to clarify is if they're asking for an exclusive talk, is it this talk can only ever be given here, or is it this talk must be new here and you can't give it elsewhere for a certain period of time? So often they don't need it to be exclusive, but they just need to know that the audience can't have already seen it on YouTube. It should be new there. And until they publish it on their YouTube channel, you can't give it at another conference.
Anything to add to that one, Michelle? Or just same again?
Yes. So I was on the organising committee for NDC Sydney this year, and so I had a little bit more sort of flexibility around my own talk. And at NDCs, they very much like you to give the same talk, the proven talk, at every single one of every one of the ones that you submit to. And so Aaron said, yeah, so Michelle, the one we've selected is your trolley problem one. And I'm like, no, Simon, no, I have done that talk at every single other NDC. I am so bored of it. I have improved it as much as I can. I cannot bring myself to do that again. I want it to be this talk. And he said, oh no, but plenty of people are going to talk about GitHub Copilot. And I'm like, no, in fact, we rejected them all because we were so bored with the number of generative AI talks that we had. And the only one you actually have on the agenda is Damien Brady. Let me do one. And it's not even fully about Copilot. It's about imposter syndrome and how you can solve it with Copilot. Let me do it. And he said, fine, do it. So after arguing my case, I got to do another one. But so sometimes it's like that. People love a talk so much, they just want to see it again and again and again. But you can, if you know the organizers, you can speak up and make your plea, which I did in that case. And that's good because that went super well at Oslo, although as I put in the chat, not as well as it could have. And I put a lot of extra work into it, but the audience didn't know about that extra work. So they seem to really enjoy it anyway. And that's the thing. You make mistakes, then in your brain, they're huge things. And that voice in your head says, well, you fucked that up. But in fact, you didn't. That voice is not your friend.
Excellent. All right. Do you reckon we can squeeze in one more question? How's everyone feeling?
I can.
All right. I'm going to ask this one because I think it's a great question to finish up on. How long does it take for you to prepare your talk? Now, I'll read out what Amy's popped in the chat here already. Well, actually, Amy, do you want to read out what you've put in the chat there already?
I can. So it depends on the length of the talk. Some talks I give 15 minutes, some talks an hour. It depends on the topic. Is this a topic that I've spoken about before? Is this something that's brand new? Is this an extension of something? Is this something that I've already written a blog post on, which is most of what I'm going to do in the talk anyway? And I had the notes, and then the chat keeps scrolling. And I forgot the last thing.
60 to 100 hours, 10 to 40 hours,
yeah.
And then 5 to 10 repeats. You're probably spending 1 to 2 hours just to review and tweak it each time.
Yeah, so 60 to 100 hours the first time I give the talk. Again, depends drastically on if it's a 20-minute talk or an hour-long talk, if it's a core skills talk or if it's live coding demo. Then, yeah, 40 to 60 hours. 10 to 40 hours each time I repeat it, depending on how much things have gone completely wrong and I need to completely rework it, or if I just need to tweak things a little bit. And then after I've repeated it quite a few times, I'm then just going through and tweaking and updating as I go.
Yeah, I think that probably sounds fairly close. I would say, though, that while that 60 to 100 hours sounds really daunting, probably if you're starting out at a like meetup or something like you probably wouldn't spend that long on a meetup presentation, if it's sort of your first one or two. But I would say that the time that you are taking to prepare it for the meetup presentation, which is the first time that you debut it, would count towards that overall sort of 60 to 100 hours. So that's something to keep in mind. But then also, and I assume that other speakers do something similar, but my process is that I actually, and Amy and I share this strong love for Notion, which is a tool that runs most of our lives. And we use it for documenting pretty much everything. I assume you still use it for everything, Amy. And I ruthlessly stole Amy's proposal template from her during the DDD training. And I have a copy of that, and I just duplicate it every time I come up with a new idea for a topic. And then I basically have that in my Notion, and I have Notion open 100% of the time on my computer. And when I think of something related to that topic, I'll jump on there and I'll like put notes or something about it. I might write a paragraph of like, oh, this is a thing that I want to add to this talk, or this is a thing that I could include in it. And then I'll generally also have at the same time, most talks, I'll have a blog post that kind of goes alongside it. And often what I'll actually do with the blog post is I'll put all of the stuff that I know I'm probably never going to actually talk about during the talk, but I like other sort of more in-depth, more specific, more niche things that I want to share with the audience, so that I can put up a QR code or something at the end and be like, read the blog post if you want more of my thoughts on this thing. But it also means that I've got somewhere where I can start to collect feedback on it. I can send it to people and say like, hey, what do you think of this? Do you have any feedback? Is there anything that I've missed? And stuff like that. So Nina, Michelle, do you have anything to add there about your experience with like how you prepare for talks and how long that takes you? And
Yeah.
Amy, do you have a copy of it still? Because I don't know how to share my version of the template. And I checked on the initial link that you shared with me, and that one doesn't work anymore on the DDD Perth. I think maybe because it was from last year. Thank you.
Yes, I start each talk as a lightning talk. And so what I will do is I will create 20 slides, 15 seconds per slide, auto advancing, one idea per slide. And by one idea per slide, that is 1.5 sentences per slide. And I will then see whether I have like 20 things of interest that I want to say about something. I will then put an image per slide, and I will try and do that as a lightning talk. If I can do that, then I'm convinced I have enough content, enough interesting stuff in order to make it work. And then, so I would in fact record that, and that would be a good snippet to give to conference organizers, like to post in your session slides to say, here's a quick summary of what my talk is going to be about, because then they can see you talking it and they can see all of these ideas that come through, and they see you have put something into it. You then, to build that out to a 30-minute talk or a 45-minute talk, you then, instead of talking for 15 seconds per slide, you see whether you can talk for a few minutes per slide. Then you see if you can put some demos in, then you see if you can put some stories in. And by the time you've done all of that, you've generally built it out to something a lot more. Yes, you should practice after you have built something, and you should try it on the user groups, you should try it on your friends, you should try it as all the things that we've said. But yes, for me, it always starts as a lightning talk to try and see whether I have got enough ideas to go somewhere with it.
I love that. I'm totally stealing that idea.
Same.
Nina, anything else to add on that before we wrap up?
Yes, I just wanted to recommend like to try things on stage or with voice. So something like that, quick, like I said before, improv, or even like voice lessons, things that are completely different than what you would necessarily like when giving a talk do, but it would still give you a lot of experience. So when you do give a talk, it feels very comfortable.
Nice. All right. I think that's us, folks. We've got 2 minutes until officially we end. And I might hand back over to Kate just to remind you all about the next talk that we've got, which I believe is about the internet, how the internet works.
Yeah, thanks, Jo.
So, also, I'm going to say one thing about the how the internet works thing, because I have spoken to Ollie about this in quite a lot of detail. And I would say that if you are confused about DNS, you should definitely go to that talk.
That's all everyone.
Yeah, that's everyone. So
everyone
everyone here should go to that talk because how the internet actually works is super confusing.
Totally. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. Hopefully you got all of your questions answered. I can see that there's like literally millions of questions in the chat. So hopefully you got all of your burning questions answered and you got a little bit of a pep talk and a bit of a place to start to get your conference writing career going. Like I said at the start, and Jo just reminded us of, we do have another webinar next week, which is how the internet works, and is going to be a little bit of a history lesson, as well as sharing some stuff that you may not know about how things work on the web, a little bit of buzzword unpacked, a little bit of a history lesson, lots of fun things covered in that talk. So that's going to be next Thursday, and the link was on those slides, and I'll send it around after this. Similar kind of format, we're running for about an hour, and that will be recorded if you can't join us live. If we can give a huge little virtual round of applause, but I'm going to actually clap for our speakers this evening and sharing all of their wisdom and resources. Yes, thank you. I can see all of the little emojis. I will send around the recording and the slides after this by email, and hopefully we will see you next week.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to stop the recording, Kate?